All right. So I do believe that people interact with people differently depending on their specific disorder and disability. And I'll give you 2 examples. So one of my best friends was actually diagnosed with bipolar disorder recently after having been misdiagnosed for many, many, many years. Right, and she is really intimidated and afraid to kind of tell people about her disorder and diagnosis because of the stigma it carries, right? So, like, I have type 1 diabetes, and I get really nervous for telling people that I have diabetes because of the stigma that's attached to it. And I think that that's why people behave differently, right? Because of that stigma. Because I really do think that that people feel that they're going to be treated differently because of it. Right, that, oh, you have bipolar or you have schizophrenia, or in my sister's case, and my sister has severe OCD and anxiety. She got it when she was in high school, or she was diagnosed. She's always had it, right, but she was diagnosed when she was in high school. And she was also like pretty afraid to kind of tell people. She was actually afraid to tell my parents how anxious and nervous she was, and I think that's because she didn't know what was going on with her. But with Allie, like OCD, that's my sister. With Allie, she wasn't as nervous to kind of tell people because people get anxiety, right? People get OCD. And for that, like her friends are very accepting, but for my friend, I think she's really nervous because of that stigma, right, that's attached to it. Languages used to diagnose people with schizophrenia.
I'll read the question.
No, I got it.
Okay.
Am I being annoying? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay, so is there a way for doctors to overcome this obstacle of diagnosis? So I actually have this conversation a lot with the people in my life that have mental illnesses, and the problem with this is that there isn't really, or the problem with like diagnosing like medical illnesses, I think, or mental illnesses, is that they're invisible, right? That they're highly subjected to the individual, or they're unique to the individual. And the thing is that there are symptoms, much like my diabetes or the flu or cancers, right? There are symptoms, like there are physical symptoms, right? But with schizophrenia and other mental illnesses, I think that that's where the problem lies, and that's what I have seen in my family members with mental illnesses. My friend, who I told you about earlier, she was misdiagnosed for 13 years with manic depressive disorder and not bipolar, and her medication was actually hurting her more than it was helping her. So that's the problem with diagnoses, is because it's this like invisible disorder, and it's not like we can screw your brain, screw like your skull cap off and like start poking around, right? We're not there yet. So, but we are there with like other more physical illnesses. So psychological studies with schizophrenia. So this is really interesting. And yes, there have been like studies with mental illnesses and how people interact with the world who have mental illnesses, or how people are treated because of their mental illnesses. But what I think is really interesting is that mental illness is always a topic in my survey project, always. And it's how students are impacted with mental illnesses, or what causes depression, what causes anxiety, how are you treated because of mental illnesses, how does the world treat you because of mental illnesses. And I think it's really interesting for 2 reasons. Like, one, it always comes out that they are treated differently because of their mental illnesses, whether it's by their friends or their teachers or their family members or the world around them. And then the second is that this continues to be an uptick. The depression and anxiety and other mental illnesses continue to be an uptick, probably because there's a lot of awareness around these things, and there's less of a stigma, right, around mental illness. But the fact that it continues to be a topic of discussion is what's really, really interesting, because it clearly, very, very clearly, mental illness, schizophrenia included, right, continue to impact people's lives. So the fact that you're researching mental illness is really, really cool, because it's this education that makes these sociological studies that much more worth exploring, because people are genuinely impacted from their diagnoses.
Thank you.